So we're here with Top Hat Gaming Man.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Enjoyed your talk on the stage the other day.
Thank you.
There was a bit of an event on there where, unfortunately, Dan Slope's game room fell off the stage.
He did. You could say he somewhat went down a little bit of a slippery slope yesterday. It's very amusing.
And you took over for a while as well. You held court quite well on stage.
I did. I facilitated a lot of the questions with the audience. It turned into somewhat of a Play Expo Top Hat Gaming Manchester event. So,
nice.
Yes, quite happy with that, really.
So why are you here? Have you come to play games? Have you come to buy things? Have you come to just mingle?
I've come here because apparently I am an influencer. So I am here to influence things. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm a professional influencer. I'm saying that in quotation marks with my fingers, but with this being audio, you can't actually see that right now. So, influencer, quotation mark fingers.
I'm sure doing it again will help get the point across.
Thank you.
In audio. So you've been on any games at all? Have you been playing Outrun, Space Harrier? Or you?
I've been quite busy, but the one game I have played quite a lot whilst I'm here has been Tempest 3000 on the new one, which I've had a lot of fun with, I have to say.
It is by far one of the best games. I think Jeff Minter himself is a perfect programmer. Everything he makes is just gold. And Tempest 3000, the new one, is a superb game.
It is actually beautiful. I heard there's a Tempest 4000 now, which I've not actually played yet either, but I've been playing Tempest 2000 quite a lot on my Sega Saturn recently, and Tempest 3000 on the new one is literally a cut above what came before it. It's really good.
So console-wise, apart from the new one, what else have you been looking forward to playing?
I had a little bit of fun earlier playing on the PC Engine Duo R, which is a variant of the PC Engine I had yet to experience before coming to this event. So that was nice, getting that hardware. Played a little bit of R-Type, and once I'm on R-Type, it's hard to get me off another game of shooters.
It's a bit addictive R-Type.
It's very addictive.
Very. Do you like any ports? So you've got the arcade of R-Type. Do you like the ports of R-Type and Spectrum and Commodore?
I wouldn't say I enjoy the ports of R-Type on the Spectrum or Commodore that much, I will say. If I play R-Type, usually I just like to go with main emulation because I like the arcade version. But if we're talking about R-Type specifically, I really like as well Super R-Type 3 on the Super Nintendo, because that version didn't come out in the arcade at all. It's literally a Super Nintendo exclusive, so that's one I really enjoy.
Console-wise, do you have any rare consoles?
Rare consoles? That's an interesting one. I do have some really rare consoles, not so much worth much in terms of monetary value, because they're not so much popular, but they're definitely rare. I've got my own, you familiar with the Megaduck?
Yes.
Handheld Megaduck. I have a Megaduck. I have a GP32 as well, which is a Korean handheld, which is also, it takes, I believe, cards.
Yeah.
It came out in the Game Boy Advance sort of era. It was also one of the earliest emulation handhelds, so it can emulate Super Nintendo very well and stuff like that. So it was made as an emulation device, but it's also got its own bespoke library of games for the system as well. So yeah, that's two of the rarer ones I own, I'd say.
I'm quite into the Neo Geo Pocket Colour.
Oh, I've got one of those as well.
Pac-Man on there is by far my favourite conversion.
I've never actually played that. No, I've not played that one yet.
When you first bought it, you get like an original joystick controller you can screw into...
oh, really?
Yeah,
I'm
like a Pac-Man controller.
Awesome.
I haven't got that one, but that's what I would love to get an original Pac-Man Neo Geo Pocket Colour game.
It's cool. I like that.
If you had to pick a favourite out of the Commodore 64 and the Spectrum, what would you go for?
Oh, that is a difficult question, because you've got the Spectrum with its absolutely humongous library of games and software. What is it? Is it 22,000 pieces of software?
Kieran RetroLed was saying at least 15,000 he knows of.
Okay. And then obviously you've got the Commodore 64, which is more technologically advanced than the Spectrum. But to be honest with you, if we're talking microcomputers, I wouldn't go for either of those. I've always been more of an Amstrad CPC 464 lad.
Wow.
I actually had one. It was my first system I ever had, full stop, which I got when I was just 3 years old, as a hand-me-down from my uncle. So that was my first gaming experience, was on the Amstrad. So if I'm going to pick a microcomputer, that's the one I always go for. Probably for 80s nostalgia.
Nice link.
Thank you.
I think there's yourself and Retro Man Cave and Neil, who are the only two that have gone for the Amstrad CPC.
You'll actually be quite surprised that we're talking about YouTubers. A lot of us have Amstrad roots.
Right.
Guru Larry, his first system was an Amstrad CPC 464 and Slopes as well.
Right.
So we all started with Amstrads, strangely enough.
Octavia said that the only reason she likes the Amstrad is you could probably take someone out with it and hold it like a baseball bat.
You could. That's a good point.
Never tried that, but
I love the size of it though, the fact that it has its own monitor and everything. It looks great. Like when you think about at the time, children young, 3 years old in 1989 in the United States, they would have had bloody Nintendo Entertainment System. That really does look like a really childish, pathetic toy in comparison to the masculine, big black CPC 464.
Exactly.
Wonderful looking piece of hardware.
And what's your take on these new mini consoles coming out? The Mini NES, Mini SNES?
I think they've got a good novelty to them. I've procured quite a few of them. Like I said, they've got a good novelty factor to them, but I think they might be a little bit pricey at times. Like I'm yet to get. Are you familiar with the Neo Geo Mini? The one with the little arcade cabinet. Everywhere I've seen that for sale has been very expensive, well over £100, which I think is rather a lot for essentially nothing more than an emulation. Right, so it depends on the price point when it comes to minis, whether or not I want one.
Being the top hat gaming man,
Yes.
wearing a top hat, being into gaming, and being a man.
Yes, although to be fair, it's just quite coincidental. People call me the Top Hat Gaming Man, but I'm not really the Top Hat Gaming Man, although I call myself Top Hat Gaming Man. That just sounds cool marketing-wise. It just happens to be my last name is Mr. Top Hat Gaming Man.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, I'm Mr. Top Hat Gaming Man.
So it's just pure ease, really.
Yes, exactly. Top Hat Gaming Man is just a great channel name.
And do you have a favourite console?
It really does vary on where I am in my life. The Super Nintendo has always been a solid favourite of mine to go back to because I think it's got a fantastic library of games, and that was my main childhood console, which I spent a bulk of time playing. However, today, the system I find myself leaning towards most, I would say, would be the Sega Saturn. And I'd say that, once again, it's because it's got a fantastic library of games. A lot of great 2D arcade-like games as well. And with a lot of them being locked down to Japan at the time, I've only recently got to experience many of those. So definitely the Sega Saturn is hands down one of my favourites. And I think it is vastly overlooked as well today.
Got things like Clockwork Knight on there, which is superb.
Yeah.
The 2.5D perspective, superb game.
There's so many great titles, especially when you look to the Japanese library too. Like I feel a lot of the time with the Japanese games, a lot of them get really overlooked. Like everyone's familiar with titles like Radiant, Silver Gun, and the likes of that, but the rest generally they don't get talked about much. And like I said recently on my channel, I've uploaded a video on the top 50 Sega Saturn games that came out exclusively in Japan. So if anyone wants to learn more about the Sega Saturn's library, they can simply do that by coming to find me over on YouTube at Top Gaming Menu.
We need to discuss your channel quite a lot because your channel is superb.
Thank you.
It covers so many different systems. What made you want to get into releasing things on YouTube?
Well, I've always been into gaming. I've been building up a large collection since way before YouTube even existed. I worked for over 10 years as a professional wrestler, so I was used to performing to a crowd. And I started enjoying a lot of retro content I've been watching. And it just made me want to give it a go myself, really. I was starting to wind down with the wrestling a bit where I've been doing it for so long, getting concerned I might get injured as I got a little bit older, so I needed to try something new. And I thought, I've got all of these games, I might as well try and find a use for them rather than just spending money on them all the time, try and make some money back on essentially what I've learned to some degree. And a little bit further from that as well, it was only 6 months after starting my channel that I decided to I went travelling around the world for a year. So it was a great way of keeping my mind healthy, doing something constructive whilst travelling, because I obviously wasn't working over that time period, so it's good to do something to keep myself sane in some ways. So yes.
And which of your most popular videos?
My most popular video came out 18 months ago when I called the American variant of the Super Nintendo ugly in design. The outrage that caused was quite hilarious. And the other big one as well was when I said that I believe the Sega Saturn had a stronger library than the Nintendo 64. So it appears that my biggest hits are when I've outraged pockets of the Nintendo fandom, which is amusing.
You mentioned a few months ago as well that you stopped collecting physical copies of games.
Yes.
Is that still...
I've got around 3,000 physical games at this point, so if I keep going, I don't want to become a hoarder. I don't want to have so many games that when I turn, I bang my head. I don't want it to all end up collapsing on me and end up being killed by my own collection. That would be quite tragic in many ways, if not ironic. So I think at this stage, with the price of games continuing to rise, thanks to those bloody YouTube influencers talking about games all the time and pushing the value up of them, if people weren't talking about them, then they wouldn't be worth so much. But since we're doing that, the price is going crazier and crazier. So I've started to go towards other means to experience games like EverDrives, emulation. And there's a lot of ways to play these old games.
Any plans for upcoming videos at all?
I intend to release over the next few days a video on the new one, because I've got an opportunity to play it at this event, and further to that as well, Quang of Wasabi Tech has a large collection, probably the largest console collection in the UK, and he recently brought his new one around my house as well. And it was a really fresh new one. I even got to peel off the protective layer of the system. So
beautiful.
It was beautiful. So the new one, that's going to be the next big one to watch out.
Well, I look forward to watching that.
Excellent. So I have been the Top Hat Gaming Man, ladies and gentlemen. Lovely for you to all be listening, and come find me over on YouTube.